Back on the Short Time Wrestling Podcast. It has been a minute for the show, but it's also been a minute since we last talked with Coach Neil Erisman down in Little Rock. The Trojans, after 5 years, have broken into the coaches poll for the first time in school history, becoming the fastest Division I startup in wrestling history to do this on the men's side. And Neil, when we started doing the Rocked Up podcast, you didn't even have a wrestling room yet. We started recording back in 2018 to document the history of the program. And if I go back and think about what we had recorded then 5-6 years ago about where you wanted to be 5 years from the blowing the whistle the first match against Ozarks, did you think you'd be here ranked 25th in the country with a couple guys ranked in the top 10 and a win over a P5 opponent?
I think if you look back, depends on what time you're asking me. If you're asking me year 1, 2, and 3, probably not. Like it seemed like it was so far away, even though we were recruiting well and doing well on the recruiting trail. It seemed almost impossible, at one point. But I think it was always part of our 5-year plan, and that was a goal, and that was honestly the last goal that we had on our 5-year plan was to finish top 25. So, we're definitely in a good spot there. So to say it was attainable, I wrote it down and thought it was attainable, and for a while, I doubted a little bit, but we stayed the course.
When looking at the projection and the, I guess, ascension of this program, let's go back to some records here. So year 1, you go 1-8, and that wins against Division III Ozarks in the very first duel in school history. Then you go 2-10. Okay, growing pains. Then you go 1-13, and you're like, geez, what the heck's going on here? 5-10 last year. Some near misses in there. You're starting to pick off some regular D1s. You're not picking off, I hate to use the term bottom feeders, but you're not just beating those teams at Division I level. You're beating teams with tradition. Then this year, criteria to Pitt. You're last year so close to beating Stanford in your building. I want to say barn because I'm thinking hockey terms, but right there at the Rock, you're so close to beating Stanford, just so close to getting those P5 wins. Nick Neighbors even tweeted a picture from year 1 of taking the picture, leading Arizona State after 4 matches, and then losing the rest of that dual meet. But you see the build, the crawl before you can walk. But let's just take us through what this season's been like for you guys.
It's been a lot of good energy, a lot of enjoyment, a lot of first, a lot of just positive attitudes and energy behind every single one of the student athletes. I really believe that we have some young guys that brought some different energy and kind of re-energized our older guys a little bit, and our older guys saw some things that were possible, and they didn't want to be left behind. So it's been an incredible feeling this year, not just competing. Like you said last year, man, we were competing hard, and we were right there with so many different schools and so many different situations we could have won, and we just weren't coming out on top. So it feels good to win big, not win because there's forfeits, not win because of scenarios, but because we went out and we earned every single win that we had this year. So it's been a great. I mean, I want to say start, but we're 3/4 of the way through it. So it's been a great year so far.
How important is it to make sure the expectations are what they are? You don't get ahead of yourself, because at this point you've only had one NCAA qualifier in school history, Paul Bianchi, who actually saw last week. He's an assistant coach up at Minnesota State with Coach Jim McCoskey. But having ranked guys is one thing. Getting them to the show, you've only done that once so far. And is it important to keep that goal setting ahead? It's like, hey, okay, we haven't won anything yet at the end of the season. A ranking is nice, but rankings don't go in the trophy case.
Yeah, I mean that's perspective. That's us always constantly self-evaluating and being aware of what's ahead of the curve. And that's something we've talked about a lot this year, is that we don't want to just be reactionary. We want to be ahead of the curve. So not being complacent in this situation is something that we've already been talking about. We started talking about it over a month ago. Just we were winning, we were doing well. Guys were finding success, and we were talking about, okay, now that we're in the winner's circle, how do we act like winners? How do we think like winners? How do we continue to go down this path and not get caught up in the moment and keep our eyes on the prize and focus on the processes that get us to where we need to be. So definitely, a lot of conversations about that with our team.
You've got a program that, again, everybody knows is still new. Everybody's been paying attention to what's been going on. It's still new. People are still rooting for you. Then you start beating teams, and the honeymoon's over about, oh, look at Little Rock, how cute. Those type of days are like, oh, now people are like, oh, man, they wrestle hard. We come out of a match, and, yeah, we really don't want to wrestle those guys again because, wrestle hard. You got a physical team. But creating a culture of winning where you've had 4 losing seasons. Again, you don't have tradition yet. You're building that tradition as you go, but how hard is it maybe to teach some of those older guys, look, I told you we were going to win. We haven't been winning until really this year. So what's it been like to kind of see those older guys progress into like, yes, we're going to be a winning program. Those first 4 years, they were really tough.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of credit to those guys. It says a lot about their character and the discipline that they've had to maintain. We've celebrated a lot of little things. I've really tried to take an encouragement approach with also some realness and some tough love about where they're at, and try to get them to focus on the processes that winning. Focus on scoring points. Stop focusing on the outcome. If you go out and you focus on scoring the next point, you score first, score next, score last. That the winning and the losing takes care of itself. And we've done a lot of just a little mental things with them. Hey, when you're in this moment, let's focus on what's the next moment to score points. Right? All last year it was, we're losing little moments, so we got to keep that intensity throughout the time. And we've done a lot of that with the older guys, and the younger guys brought the speed and the intensity that we really needed to execute at a high level. And combining that with good feels, because our older guys have pride. They don't want to get beat by a freshman. They don't want to get beat by a second-year freshman. So I think all those things combined kind of put us into this situation, and we responded in a lot of hard situations, a lot of tough situations where in the past we might have dropped our head or let our guard down, and we just kept reminding them of the things that make them successful. And credit to them for believing and buying in and staying the course. I mean, it says so much about someone who can stay the course over a period of time and really stay focused on the goal. So, big props to those older guys.
Yeah, and some of those older guys you talked about staying focused and staying the course. Some of them were starters those first couple of years, and now here they are in year 4, year 5, that they're not in the lineup anymore, and they're still in your room, making your room better. What do you say to those guys like that? Those foundation, those building blocks that, you know what, they served a role, but they weren't just here. We're using you, and you're done with you. You're part of the program, whether or not you're in the lineup consistently or not.
I mean, we can't do it without him. I think of guys like Jaden Carson. He was steady in the lineup until last year, the first 3 years of the program, and won a lot of matches for us, and was probably a couple seconds away from going to the NCAA tournament. And there's a lot of guys like that in our program that I think it's a testament to our culture, because they know they're important. They know they're valued. They know that they're valuable here. They know that we love them and we care for them and we want them to be successful. But for us to move forward, we were very honest with everyone in the beginning. Like, we're going to continue to bring in guys to compete against you, and it's what you need to be successful. And if you're not ready, then you might lose that spot. But no matter what, you're going to be more proud of yourself when you leave this program, knowing that you fought the entire time that you're here and that you gave yourself a shot and you gave it all you had, and you can hang your hat on that. And so I think that without those guys, there's no way we'd be in the position that we're in today.
We also look at a rule change that we saw take action last year. It was the 5-date rule with the true freshman, and you had said after the match with Stanford where you had thrown in a couple guys for a couple of those matches and almost pulled the victory out there. It's like, I'd have loved to have had this rule our first 2 years where you didn't, you had what you had no returners. Matter of fact, Connor Ward was the Little Rock guy. As for 1 year, he was the only guy in school that was on the wrestling program. But how much has that rule change with the freshman eligibility for the 5 dates really help guys? Especially, I'm going to look at Stephen Little, for example, going to the scuffle last year, getting those reps in, and basically that being part of his redshirt year.
I mean, I love it. We had to forfeit at heavyweight our first year, all second semester, just because when you're thin and you have 14 to 20 guys on the team, you get put in tough situations. I had guys wrestling up 3 weight classes just so we didn't forfeit. Um, so I think it's important. It's important for the development of your good young guys and them getting the feels of wrestling in a duel and understanding that it's a lot different than showing up to an open tournament and wrestling 3 times a year. Like the team needs you, the wins on the line, and there's a lot of tough scenarios where these guys have to fight through, and they have to fight through at a young age. And so you can kind of see where they're at. And Stephen Little specifically, like we really thought about wrestling him last year, but watching him in some of his matches, he was beating top ranked guys. He was doing the things that it took, but it seemed like there was a little bit of an edge missing in his size, and um, maybe he didn't fully believe that he should be, pulled out a red shirt yet. So I think it allowed us to really evaluate him and allow him to evaluate himself and really understand where he's at. So we've been really thankful for that rule, and it's benefited us a lot.
Part of the recruiting world of a wrestling coach is the familial lineage. I mean, we talked a little bit about Paul Bianchi, and of course now Joey and Maddie are down there. You got the family, you got the brother line. Then, of course, Nasir Bailey's got the family line that has brought him there. What is it like for a coach to say, okay, we've got nothing. Now we've got your brother to buy in. Now, how do we get your other brothers to buy in? How, working that family tree for recruiting? What's that been like for you?
It's been awesome. It's we got the Bianchis, we got the Carsons, and we got the Baileys, and you know we don't have to really sell them on it. It's really get them in here, and they see that we take the time with every student athlete, and that every student athlete's important, and they get attention. It's not like we get 7 or 8 good guys. They get all the attention. Everyone gets pushed to the sides. Like everybody gets attention all the way through the year, and when you have family that is thinking about coming here, a guy like Matty Bianchi was not really didn't really want to follow his brothers. That was not something he wanted to be an individual. I mean, go look at his TikTok, go look at his Instagram. Like he's that type of person. But what we sold him on was the Bianchis are going to help build this foundation, and we can't do it without you. And what's a better place to do it where you're doing it for the first time. And I think that whole message and that whole process, and we told them, we tell these guys a lot, like we want you to be an individual on this team. We want you to be fight for the team, be a part of the team, but we want to give you the tools that it takes to your uh, build your brand, build who you are, and we've really given him the freedom to do that, and along with Nasir and others, and I think it really helps him understand that like you're not just following your brother, you're a part of something, and without you, this doesn't go in the direction that we want it to go. So, even though they are technically following their brothers, we allow them to be individuals within our program.
You also look at the continuity amongst the staff. You brought in Javi early before the program actually started. He had started a program at Southeastern University in the NAIA. He was from the South, comes from a line of coaching in his own family. So you've had that consistency. Albert White's been on the staff for a couple of years. And of course, that other coach, the GA, of course, rotates. That's typical. What's it like to have that stability with you, Javi, and Albert on staff there consistently, that those same goals in mind?
Yeah, I mean it's been awesome, and we've had Coach Schaefer for 2 years now, and it seems like he's here permanently. So, having that consistency allows for growth over time to continue to happen. It allows for everyone's strengths to seep into the program. It allows for their mentalities to seep in versus trying to grab when there's in and out rotation. And so I think that growth has allowed our guys to mature and attach to coaches in certain ways, mentally, emotionally, physically, just their body type of how a coach can help them. And I think it's been a huge part of the process. I have 3 other height, but besides myself, every single person has been a high school coach on this staff. And so knowing how to develop, knowing how to build relationships with everybody on the team, knowing how to wear a lot of hats has been very, very helpful. Having someone like Coach Schaefer, who's really spent a lot of time on the international circuit as well, um, has brought a lot of different, viewpoints. He's been everywhere from Cornell to NJRTC to OU. Wrestled in college his first year at Army West Point, and then transferred to Oklahoma State. So we got a lot of diversity of thoughts and backgrounds on our staff, and it's allowed us to really grow in ways that have been very, very special. And honestly, I thank God for everything that's been done here, especially in the process of my staff being put together. It just seems like he kind of put those things in place that really complemented me in ways that I might not have known in the moment. So very grateful for the staff for sure.
Being the boss and being a young head coach, you get pretty aggressive. You want to get everybody on a trip. You're in Fargo, you're at Super 32. You're like, I got to do this, got to do this, got to do this. And when you look at the coaches that have had the success, from that mid-major and building programs into powerhouses or national names, it usually doesn't happen within the first recruiting class or the second recruiting class, sometimes not even the third recruiting class. How have you maintained your sanity as a coach going through these things as the boss for the first time and be like, okay, this didn't work year one, so let's try something. This didn't work year two. Let's throw that up. Let's throw that against the wall and see if it sticks. So what's it been like for your evolution as the coach and the man in charge?
Well, I think it's about perspective. It's about knowing who you are and what you stand for, and staying really strong to your values. To your values. And so for me, my faith in Christ is what, like, God brought me here. He put me in this position, and He has me here for a reason. And I try to focus on that more than the wins and losses. I try to focus on every person is here for a purpose, and I want to help them grow in that. I really want my athletes to have a solid foundation that they live their life on, and I want to help foster that. And then I try to teach them to control the things they can control on a daily basis. There's ups and downs. There's good. There's bad. There's criticism. There's pats on the back, and how we stay in that middle, just steady climbing to the top, is really important. So, and then having great relationships helps with that as well. And so, if we kind of focus on those three things, then, the winning and the losing kind of takes care of itself. If you have a solid standard, a solid foundation that you have for your program, you can keep your eyes on the prize and focus on the things that get you there versus the ups and downs of the outcomes. And most things are not taught, they're caught. And I have to, consistently tell myself and my staff that, like, we can't be the ups and downs. We can't be the highs and the lows. We got to be the consistent, because if we don't believe, how are they supposed to believe? And we try to keep that mentality from day one all the way through, and keep perspective. Like, what we're doing is like no one else in the country. There's other programs that have started with tradition, or used to have a program or have a club team, but no one's starting from scratch with no tradition, no history, no alumni, no donors, and keeping all of that in perspective and saying, okay, it is going to be hard, but we didn't sign up for this because it was going to be easy, or we signed up for it because this is where God put us, and we're gonna put one foot in front of the other every single day, and keep focusing on the things that are important. And if we do that, then good things are going to happen. And we preach that from every recruiting pitch to our guys on a consistent basis, and daily, and it's rolled right across, and it's really helped us grow and grow drastically.
Other things that people look at when it comes to your program, obviously the name on your building, the wrestling room, the office that you're in right now, has the name Hatcher on it. And a lot of people will just assume that Greg does so much, which he does. He does so much for the sport of wrestling in Arkansas and around the country. But what's that relationship been like? Obviously he's not going to come in there and tell you how to run your program, but what are some things about what Greg does, or maybe what he doesn't do, that help you guys thrive?
Well, first off, he's a great friend. I mean, this is not a relationship where it's like give and take. He's a friend at first, and I've learned so much from him in my short time here. Just the way he runs his business, his outrageous service to his customers, and I tried to apply a lot of those things. He'd always tell me different stories, and he was always giving me little insights to how he became successful, and I tried to apply all of those as much as I could. And so, not only has he been a friend, he's been a mentor, and he's also been someone who kind of keeps me balanced when I'm not, in the right mindset. I call him upset. I'm like, this is going on. I don't know what to do. And he kind of gives me some direction. So he's been extremely valuable outside of what people can tangibly touch and see. Our facility's top five. His support's top five, and that's all great. But all the extras that he's given us is beyond what I can sit here and brag about.
When we first started this journey with chronicling the program with the Rocked Up podcast, the staff you came in with has been completely changed over. You've had you got a new AD who's now outgoing, even though Mr. Lee's been there for quite a while, and you've had staff changeover around you. But what's the support been like at Little Rock? And for those who are unfamiliar with the school, I mean, it is in the center of the capital city. You don't have football there. And you've shifted all sports conferences, and we'll get to the wrestling conference thing here in a minute. But just what is the landscape for people who don't know about where you sit in college wrestling right now?
Well, I mean, it's been extremely tough. Our school, when I came in, some rules changed across the state that affected our enrollment, and our school had to reorder. So our athletic director left, our chancellor left. We were without both for a while. Mr. Lee was our interim AD, in an interim status. At one point he said it was only for a year, and then it ended up being a long time. And then we got a new chancellor, and then COVID. You're right in the middle of COVID, trying to figure out how to navigate all that. And then when it seems like everything was about to settle, the conference realignment hit, and now our AD is leaving, and we're getting a new AD, which I'm very grateful for George Lee, but I do think this is a positive direction for our athletic department. We went through a lot of hard times, and George navigated that for us, and so I'm grateful for him for that. But I do think it is a positive that we're moving in that direction. So the landscape has been ever changing. The support, there's a group of people that have been here and supported us from day one, and we had over 1,000 people at our duel the other day, and most of them were from kids clubs, and that's the beginning of that for us. In the past, it's always been me begging all my friends and everyone begging their friends to come. Now we're getting wrestling community to be here, and so the support has really changed overnight, and it's been really great to see. There's been that core group that's been there since the beginning, and we're grateful for them, but it's really cool to see the others as well.
Now the question people are wanting to know about the future right now, with the Pac-12 being what it's going to be, you've got a waiver, so you got at least one more year of figuring out the qualifying situation. Is there's that waiver. I guess, of course, the Big 12 had it before they had just the 4 teams, but there was some talk about trying to scramble and get the Ohio Valley Conference to work on some wrestling things, and then Lindenwood goes and drops the program. So what's it like for you to try to navigate this with your athletic department? Like, okay, where are we going to land? Right now we got a big Pac-12 shield on the outside of our building and on our singlets, but where do you think Little Rock goes from here?
Well, I mean, we're going to use this year, and I'm not trying to give you the runaround type answer.
The coach
but,
speak answer, yeah.
yeah, the coach speak. That's not really my style. I don't like doing that. But the reality is that we're going to have to let this play out. There's so many other factors that we're just not in control of to make that decision. I don't think it would be wise for us to just jump to a conference right now. I think we need to see what happens. There is conferences out there that if they were taking affiliates, I think we would 100% go to. But we need to see how the landscape of college athletics changes. I mean, there's been, just between the Oregon State and Washington State, lawsuit that directly impacts wrestling, and how we can or can bring teams into the conference to keep the Pac-12. And ultimately, our goal is to keep wrestling even though we're in the South and, somewhat of the Midwest, our goal is to help keep wrestling on the West Coast. It's super important. It's super important for our sport. There's a lot of coaches that are very short-sighted and only focus on themselves, and I strongly disagree with that view and those coaches that do that. We're going to focus on the big picture and try to help keep wrestling on the West Coast alive and strong and thriving. And then, when we get through this process of, this time next year, I think we should have a pretty good idea of what direction we're going, if we're staying, if we need to, if we've already applied to a new home. But we kind of got to let some of this play out, during this off season and see where everybody lands.
We look at, obviously we've kind of buried the event that kind of got you guys ranked this week, and that's the win over Arizona State. You had, again, we point back to that first season where you're beating Arizona State to the point where Nick Neighbors, your director, we took a picture of it and said, all right, wow, we're actually winning. And then we come down and we actually get, there's an 18-15 victory there. And it comes down to heavyweight, and you've had a heavyweight California native, so that West Coast thing. Going out there, and he's been in some tight situations his entire career. Came up short and won last year against Stanford. Now he's got this behemoth named Colton Schultz that he has to contend with, and we can do the math. We can figure out what's going to happen. So, first of all, talk about Josiah and his, his match management there, and then what was it? What was the feeling when you got the win? There's Larry Zeke Jones across the way, and Lee Pritz and the staff that he's got there. I mean, this is a program win. It's the first P5 win. It's the first ranked win. This one can't really be undersold for what it means to the school.
Yeah, I mean it means everything to us. I think Josiah was the perfect person to have to go out and wrestle that match. For the record, Josiah went out and wrestled to win. He was in on the leg to take him down and just made one mistake, and he goes up by a point with short time left in the match, right? So by no means did we encourage him to go out and wrestle to not lose big or bad. We encourage him to win. And that was our message to him. Like, not only do you get to win this match for us, but you get to beat a top 5 guy, and in my opinion, a guy who could be in the finals and find himself, being a national champion. But just someone who's been here and been a huge part of the foundation and the backbone of this program. It was pretty awesome for him to see that. I think it showed him how he needed to wrestle him to beat that guy. He was right there. I think he's 0-5 or 0-6 against him, and he's always just shown little glimpses of being really close to figuring it out. And I think this match might have put him over that hump, and I feel really good about the next time we wrestle him. So it's pretty cool to see Josiah, someone who's been here since basically day one. I know it was year 2, but and been such a huge part of our program, to be able to go out and seal the deal.
And as far as the team victory, I mean, we've had big crowds in there. The first crowd, I remember, talking with George Lee, that first duel. He goes, "Well, I didn't expect a basketball crowd." I'm like, "What?" And then Oklahoma State, of course, has come in there and put over 1,000 in the seats. And for a state that is still really learning the sport of wrestling. It's only been since 2007, 2008, that range, where high school wrestling became the norm. I mean, we've got people like, when I come down to announce dual meets, the production woman sitting next to me, she wrestled in high school. Like, you've got, your director of ops is, big in the FCA. I mean, there's wrestling people around me in Arkansas when I come down there, and this wasn't always the case. So, when you get the fans involved there, what's it been like to try to work on that outreach? Scheduling is what it is, but in order to get, people coming into the Jack Stevens Center more regularly to start packing that place for those, quote, basketball crowds.
Man, it was unbelievably cool on Friday night. Just being in that situation and looking up and having, out of the little over 1,000 people, 900 something or 1,000 were cheering for us, and they wanted us to win. And it's a pretty cool thing to when you get a big win, like a lot of our guys did, to stand up and pump up the crowd that's there wearing Little Rock stuff. And that's important. That's important for our community. That's important for our guys to see. The visibility of our brand and just how we wrestle and how we compete. Man, it was just an unbelievable moment to have all those people there. And I really hope we can keep that momentum going throughout the year, because if we do that, we're going to be hard to beat with those types of fans at home.
Coming up though, one thing I was actually telling my wife earlier about the ranking. It says, what happens when these schools get ranked for the first time? Usually they find themselves on the losing end pretty much next time out, and they just fall out. You've got a tough schedule coming up with some ranked teams coming up. This is not going to be smooth sailing from here on to the Pac-12 tournament. I mean, every team you're going to see in dual meet action, I believe, if at least in conference, Oregon State, Stanford, and you've still got Cal Poly. I mean, those are three ranked teams. Right? Pac-12 has 4 teams ranked, so it's like, well, it doesn't get any easier now that you've got the ranking. You've got to defend the ranking. You've got to defend the rock.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely something we talked about, but it's a new challenge every single time, and it's not something that we're beating people that on paper are supposed to beat us. So, we're sticking to our guns and facing it as a challenge, and that it's something we haven't done. We never beat Oregon State, we never beat Cal Poly, we never beat Stanford, and I don't think that we're satisfied with that. Like, there's no one in my room that's happy about only beating one team or 2 teams in the Pac-12. So I think they're still driven. I think they're still got a fire in their belly about and a little chip on their shoulder about not beating these 3 teams, and we're going for it. We're going to go for it with all we got.
Sitting behind you is an NCAA trophy. You've only gotten one guy to the show so far. You're in good position to get more than that, multiple guys this year. But to put one of those things in the trophy case, whether it be team or individual, let's just start with the individual because that seems to be the more attainable in the short term. But talk about those goals and getting that NCAA trophy in that big trophy case, which was brand new and completely spick and span, but empty when you walked into it for the first time. Now you're putting hardware in there. What's it going to take to put one of those in the trophy case?
Man, we got to be consistent. We got the guys that can do it. But the NCAA tournament, it's wild, it's tough, it's hard, it's emotional, and so we're trying to navigate day by day right now. And I think if we stay focused to the end of the month of January, and we're able to be really consistent through February and finish strong, I think we're going to put ourselves in a really good position to take several guys to the NCAA tournament, not just one. And so I think if we do that, we got a couple guys that can, that they're there talent wise and skill wise. They got to keep their mentality, and we got and we got 3 or 4 guys that if they find their way where they're supposed to be, could really shock some people and surprise some people the way they wrestle. And I always tell guys the way we wrestle, it allows us to be successful. And if we focus on that and stay the course, stay the process, the way that we focus on scoring points and the way that we attack, it's going to put us there in the end. And that's really what it's about. And so I think that's what's gotten us this far is we've stayed focused on those things, and we're going to continue to hammer those every day.
Look at the schedule coming up. Now you got to win on the road. You win big at home. Oregon State, Stanford coming up this weekend, followed by Cal Poly at the Rock, and then you close out your home schedule with a try with SIUE and CSU Bakersfield. I'll actually be there for that one in case anybody out there is wondering. No, you're not wondering, but I'll be there. Keeping the streak alive. But, going into that run, you've got ranked teams on the road now. Oregon State, Chris Pendleton just put a big crowd in there for Penn State. They're wrestling hungry. Chris Ayers in his first year. Cupboard wasn't empty when he got there. Rob Cole and Jason Borelli before him have done a good job at keeping Stanford nationally relevant. And then Cal Poly, which, you've got the relationship there with Chris Chianuma. And then by one of the last times I was in town, I mean, you guys are like just kind of powing around, a little powwow prior to match day. So there's relationships there. It's friendly rivalries. You got teammates up and around the place. A lot of people you've known for a long time. But this is going to be a tough road trip for you with Oregon State and Stanford.
Yeah, I mean, this is one that's been marked on the calendar for a while. Is we're going to have to show up. I mean, Oregon State's going to be, I mean, in my opinion, right now they're probably the toughest team in the conference, and they've competed like it. They competed against Penn State, Iowa, Oklahoma State. They went to Cliff King. They have that experience, and so I think this is a great opportunity for us to really see where we're at heading into the conference tournament. And then you turn around, you back it up with a Stanford team that is just got some studs on it. They've got and some young guys that are really tough. And so I think that as a team, this is going to be a great challenge for us. And if we go through this weekend and we're successful, I think it's going to say a lot about our team. It's going to say a lot about our perseverance and, where we're at mentally, going into the rest of the season. And then you're on a short week and you wrestle Cal Poly, who's always, scrappy and tough and finds ways to win. And, they've kind of beat us up in the duel the last couple years. And so I think we got a chip on our shoulder, and we got to keep that and recognize this is a great, great opportunity for what it's going to be like to finish out the season.
Neil, as we wrap up here, as you got to get ready for your actual job and such, instead of just talking to me, you can do that anytime. But we got the home matches coming up, the last two, February 3rd, Cal Poly, February 7th, again that tri-meet, and then you guys aren't sneaking up on anybody anymore. You're ranked, one of 4 teams in the Pac-12, ranked in the top 25, moving the program in the right direction. So now, how do you avoid being the target and making sure, like, okay, you're coming to compete, gonna show some grit out there? In terms of, all right, yeah,
Well,
this isn't new anymore.
No. I think the message is consistent. We don't need to have sweeping changes because we're successful. We need to understand that we have to do the things that make us us. The wrestling in every position, the showing up every day with the right reasons and the right priorities. And I think if we do that and we stick to setting goals of, we set goals every single duel, how many points we're going to score collectively as a whole. And those little things have taken the pressure off of us and allowed us to compete freely. And so I think if we continue to do that, we'll be successful. There's no reason that we have to lose a match moving forward. If you just look at it, like we might be the underdogs in a few of these matches, but there's no reason that we can't go in and we can't sweep the rest of the season. I believe that. Doesn't mean that that's what's going to happen, but that's our expectation. And we understand that we have to show up every day and protect that with our everyday actions, and that most of those wins have been have happened weeks and months before this. And so I just keep encouraging my guys that we've already done the work to win this match. We just got to go out with the right energy and the right reasons and the right priorities. And if we do that, then we're going to come out on top.
Neil Erisman, he's going to get rocked up. Number 25 in the country from there was no building under your feet about 6 years ago. So it's been quite a rise and been quite a ride.
It's been incredible. A huge sense of gratefulness towards the people that made this happen, Mr. Hatcher, and the people in the state of Arkansas who believed, and to my guys. Holy smokes, just to stay in the course and believing and buying in and betting on themselves when they could have gone anywhere they wanted. To our families, our wives, our kids who've sacrificed a lot just so we could get to this point, which is just one part in the process. It's not our standard. It's not it's just an expectation. And so just a lot of thankfulness, a lot of gratefulness, people like yourself who've been here since day one. And, we happily adopted you into our program. And, there's a lot of people like that I can't even, I don't know if we had 45 minutes more to state them all, but there's a lot of people and a lot of things. And, God's been good through this whole time, even when it was big time struggles, and how do we bring the energy every day? He's been good, and I'm just humbled to be in this position and to lead this team and be here at Little Rock.